Okay, good morning. Yes, we'll continue the portion creativity. Take page number 19. 19. We saw till the second paragraph, isn't it? We read till second paragraph yesterday. Yes. Okay. See the next paragraph. I'll read. How do we explain variations in the potential for creativity? So, in the beginning, we saw that there are differences in the way different people or different individuals express their creativity, isn't it? And the level of creativity is also different among different people. Like scientists and all are in a different level of creativity, while the skill workers, that is, the carpenters and the what do you call the people who make potters, I mean pots, the potterers, okay, all they are in a different level of creativity again. So the creativity of people differs not only in the potential but also in the levels. Okay, so there are variations in the potential for creativity also. So how do we explain variations in the potential for creativity? As in the case of other mental and physical characteristics, such variations can be attributed to the complex interaction of heredity and environment. When we saw intelligence, when we saw personality, we saw how the interactions with the genetics and the environment is bringing about changes, isn't it? And how it is bringing differences. Last year in human development, also we learned this. Why is a human being unique? Why is he or she different from the others? That's because he or she has its own what do you call genetics, genetic mechanisms, as well as the environment. Both of them differs in people. So it's the combination of both that brings in the uniqueness in each individual. So in intelligence also we saw, isn't it? Nurture nature issue. Yes, how environmental factors and how the genetic factors are influencing our intelligence. So, similarly, as in the case of other mental and physical characteristics, such variations can be attributed to the complex interaction of heredity as well as environment. Then, there is no disagreement that creativity is determined. Just a minute. So there is no disagreement that creativity is determined by both heredity and environment. So just like any other psychological attribute like intelligence, personality, and so on, creativity is also determined by the interaction of these both. That is environment as well as the genetics. But let's see what's the point. Limits of the creative potential are set by heredity. Environmental factors stimulate the development of creativity. That is, the range of creativity in a person is determined by genetics. Okay. Then, what is expressed in real life, that is determined by the environment. Like yesterday, we saw the last point that if only the opportunities are given, can the person express the creativity. If the person is not given any opportunity to express his or her creativity, then obviously the people around them or himself or herself will not know that that person is creative, isn't it? Suppose in a school there are no extracurricular activities, they are just lecturing, no there is no room for the student teacher interaction, nothing. Just imagine it's just a monotone, the teacher or the lecturer will come and lecture about the topic and then go home after the class in the evening. There is no annual day, there is no Onam celebration, there is no cultural competitions, nothing. In that case, we wouldn't know how the student is creative or in what ways are they creative or are they creative at all, isn't it? Only if there is any opportunity can we understand that this person is creative in nature. So the thing is, the point is the limit of creativity, that is how much you can be creative. Can you be very creative or are you very less creative? That is determined by genetics, genetic makeup. Okay. And just like any other factor, we'll take one example, aggression or anger. That is sometimes genetically modified. Like if your father or mother is very much angry, Then if you get angry, most of them say, ah, you're just like your father, or you're just like your mother, isn't it? Because that range is set by genetic itself. But if you are in a boarding school and there is no room for you to express your anger, then obviously nobody will know that you're angry or you're a very aggressive person, isn't it? So that is related to environmental factor and the range of anger in you. That is, are you a person who does not get angry at all, that is a very calm person, or a person who gets very much angry, even for silly reasons. That range is set by genetics and the way you express it, or at what all circumstances do you express it, that is determined by the environmental factors. Just like that, creativity also. Okay, so the limit is set by genetics and the opportunity is given by your environment to express your creativity. Is that clear? Yes. Ashish, is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Then, how much of the creative potential can be realized when and in what specific form and direction is largely determined by environmental factors such as motivation, commitment, family support, peer influences, training opportunities, etc. Underline that sentence and keep. That might come as assertion reasoning type of questions. I'll read it once more. How much of, for those who joined late, it's page number 19. 19. Page number 19 on the left side, last paragraph. Okay. I'll read that sentence once more. How much of the creative potential can be realized when and in what specific form and direction is largely determined by environmental factors such as motivation, commitment, family support, peer influences, training, opportunities, etc. Okay. Although no amount of training can transform an average person to the level of Tagore, Shakespeare, etc., it is also true that every individual can raise her or his level of creative potential beyond its present level. That is, to a certain level, we can increase our creative potential or our creativity. That is the point. Although we cannot reach the level of, I told you in the beginning, there are different levels of creativity. The scientists, Tagore, and the famous personalities, they are in the higher level of creativity. So it's not necessary that every common man can reach that higher level. It depends on a lot of other factors also, the intelligence, then the opportunities around him or her, all those factors. Okay. So, but the person can try and improve his or her level of what do you call creativity. Which level you are in currently can be improved to a next level by any person. Although you cannot jump straight to the highest level. That is the point. Okay. Then, in this context, you have already read in class 11 about strategies to enhance creativity. I don't think we read about it, isn't it? It was deleted portion. Okay, that's all right, no problem. Okay, now creativity and intelligence we'll see. Before that, just take our table. We learn the next two and then we'll move on. Page number 15, table 1.2. Okay, so we have completed the first four. And now it's today we'll learn the next two. That is group test of intelligence by Bureau of Psychology, Allahabad. Then Indian adaptation of Stanford Binet test, third edition by S.K. Kulshrestha. Kulshrestha. I'm sorry. Okay. When you study, before starting to study the next two, please revise the first four. Okay, just see if you can memorize it or not. I've given time to study, don't waste time. Because after the class, you'll have other subjects to study also. That's why I'm giving time in the class itself. So study fast. One more minute. Complete learning first. Only till the sixth one. Okay. Okay, done. Shall we discuss the rest? Okay. So creativity and intelligence, the last topic in the chapter, creativity and intelligence, page 19, 19. For those who were absent yesterday, most probably the first revision test will be from this chapter. Okay, the whole chapter. So creativity and intelligence. One important debate in understanding the variations in creativity has been the relationship of creativity with intelligence. Okay. Let us take an example of two students in a class. Sunita is regarded by her teachers as an excellent student. She does her work on time, scores the highest grades in her class, listens to instructions with care, grasps quickly, reproduces accurately, but she rarely comes out with ideas which are her own. Okay, it's more or less like spoon feeding. Whatever is taught to her, she studies and then you know, writes that in the exam, gets good marks, and then that's it. But she never puts in ideas of her own. That is about Sunita. Now, Rita is another student who is just average in her studies and has not achieved high grades consistently. So her grades keeps on changing from high to low or low to high or average, sub-average, above average, and so on. Okay. Then she prefers to learn on her own. She improvises new ways of helping her mother at home and comes up with new ways of doing her work and assignments. Yesterday, I told you when you hear the term new, innovative, and all, most probably it will be related to creativity. Okay, when you see a question, the word novel, new, innovative, all these are related to, most probably related to creativity. Then, the former is considered to be more intelligent and the latter as more creative. Former means the first one, latter means the last one, second one. Okay. So, former one means the name was Sunita. She is considered to be more intelligent, but the second one is considered, that is, Rita is considered to be more creative in nature. Why? Because she is bringing in her own ideas, new ideas, not the ideas that are already existing, but new ideas. Okay, that's what creativity means. Innovative ideas, new ideas will be made. Then, does a person who has the ability to learn faster and reproduce accurately may be considered intelligent more than creative unless he or she devises new ways of learning and doing. Suppose if we take the same case as Sunita, and if she gets good marks because she is bringing in more ideas of learning things and more ideas of doing her assignments, that is something of her own, then we can call her intelligent as well as creative. Okay, but here she is just learning whatever the teacher is telling her to do, or she's just doing the assignment just the way the teacher has instructed her. That's it. There is no creative element there. But Rita, on the other hand, she's not so good at learning and remembering, but still she puts in her own ways or her own methods and modifies the work, modifies learning also. Okay, so the method that we are applying, that is using mnemonics and connecting it with stories and all those things, they are creative in nature, isn't it? Maybe the last day we discussed one storyline about Uday Shankar, that whole case, CIE, the test. But maybe nobody has not used it yet before. So that's a creative one. It's a new idea. Okay. Mnemonics must have been used, but this particular mnemonic may not have been used by other people. There are very less chances, isn't it? Okay. Then, Terman in the 1920s, underline the name and the year. Terman in the 1920s found that Thurman in the 1920s found that persons with high IQ were not necessarily creative. That sentence is important. Note it. Again, there are chances for assertion reasoning. Thurman in the 1920s found that persons with high IQ were not necessarily creative. That is, think of Sunita and Rita again. Person with high IQ, or maybe Sunita is very intelligent, but was her case very creative? No, isn't it? So it's not necessary that people with high IQ are creative. Okay, that's the point. That was found out by Thurman in the 1920s.
Um,
Ah,
is his full name Louis Thurman?
I think, yeah, Louis Thurman, yes, think so. Creativity, same. I'll refer and tell you, okay? Don't confirm now. I'll refer and tell you. I think so, yes. Okay, at the same time, creative ideas could come from persons who did not have a very high IQ. Again, think of Rita's case. If she was not very good at learning and showing her intelligence, she was creative in nature. She could bring in more ideas, more new ideas to her learning elements and the assignments that she did. Okay, then other researchers have shown that not even one of those identified as gifted followed up throughout their adult life had become well known for creativity in some field. Okay, so that means the gifted individuals, not even one of those identified as gifted. That means we have learned about intellectual giftedness and intellectual deficiency. So those who belong to the category of intellectual giftedness, which means it's the other extreme of intelligence, isn't it? The higher extreme of intelligence. Even they were not found to be creative in nature. Okay. Then, researchers have also found that both high and low level of creativity can be found in highly intelligent children and also children of average intelligence. It can be found in both. The same person thus can be creative as well as intelligent, but it is not necessary that intelligent ones in the conventional sense must be creative. Okay, so we cannot say that a person is not creative and intelligent at the same time. There are individuals who are intelligent plus creative, but there are individuals who are very much intelligent but very low in creativity. Understood? You understand the combination? Yes. So intelligence plus creativity is possible, but it's not necessary that this happens for everybody. If one person is very intelligent, it doesn't. Or this person has a very high IQ. It doesn't mean that the person will be high in creativity also. That's the difference. Okay. Then what else? Intelligence, therefore, by itself does not ensure creativity. Underline that. Intelligence does not ensure creativity. Usually in films also this is depicted. The topper of the class might not know how to solve a problem, like a real life problem. But the backbenchers will come up with a common, a new solution for the real life problem that they face. Maybe in the class or maybe in real life. It's a very common thing. In most of the films it's there, no? Yes. All the nerds would be wearing the specs and then holding the books and getting good marks in the class, but still, if they face the problem, they'll tremble. Not only in real life problems, but in the creative arts and all. It's not necessary that they excel, but there are people who excel too. Okay, so that's the point. So, intelligence does not ensure creativity. Then, researchers have found that the relationship between creativity and intelligence is positive. All creative acts require some minimum ability to acquire knowledge and capacity to comprehend, retain, and retrieve. That is, we learned about correlation, isn't it? Yes. So, in some studies, it's found that intelligence and creativity are related to each other. Okay, and the relationship is positive. Some people, that is, if intelligence increases, creativity increases. For some people, in some studies, it has been found. And And the reason is given. All creative acts require some minimum ability to acquire knowledge and capacity to comprehend, retain, and retrieve. So, some form of learning capacities, some form of thinking capacities is necessary. All these are a part of intelligence, isn't it? Remember the definition of intelligence? At least Binay's definition. Well. Think well. Check. What was the definition? Alfred Binay's definition.
Think, understand, and reason well.
To judge well, understand well, and reason well.
Judge well, understand well, reason well. Okay, judge, understand, and reason. JUR. Okay, fine. Okay, creative writers, for example, need facility in dealing with language. That is an example given for the above statement. Creative writers, for example, need facility in dealing with language. The artist must understand the effect that will be produced by a particular technique of painting. A scientist must be able to reason, and so on. Hence, a certain level of intelligence is required for creativity, but beyond that, intelligence does not correlate well with creativity. Okay, so there is a correlation. Some amount of intelligence is required for creativity, but we cannot say that very people with very high IQ or very high level of intelligence are not creative or are creative. We cannot definitely say. It depends on individuals and their circumstances. All right. It can be concluded that creativity can take many forms and blends. Some may have more of intellectual attributes, others may have more of attributes associated with creativity. But what are the attributes of a creative person? You may like to discuss the attributes which are common to all kinds of creative persons. Creative tests came into existence to assess variations in terms of the potential for creativity in contrast to intelligence. Okay. So potential for creativity is important there in creativity tests than intelligence. A general feature of most of the creativity tests is that they are open-ended. Underline. Most of the creativity tests are open-ended. Most of the creativity tests are open-ended. Okay. They permit the person to think of different answers to the questions or problems in terms of his or her experiences, whatever these may have been. Okay, so what are open-ended questions? The question that I asked now, is that open-ended or closed-ended? What are open-ended questions?
It makes a person to talk freely.
Okay, no, the question that I asked, is it open-ended or closed-ended?
Open-ended,
Open-ended. Why?
because it is not like closed-ended with yes or no.
There is no definite response for it. The respondent can describe. Descriptive questions are open-ended in nature. Like when you have a written exam, the essay questions, short essay questions, all those are open-ended questions. That is, you can freely write about it. But the exams that you are going to have uh, in the coming days, they are closed-ended. Why? Because there is a set of responses that are already given. You have to choose from it. Okay, you cannot write whatever you want and give. You can write, but you will not get marks. Okay, so you have to mark your responses from the given responses that are closed ended. The end is closed, but open ended means you can freely explore the topic and write whatever you feel like. Fine. They permit the person to think of different answers to the questions or problems in terms of his or her experiences, whatever these may have been. These help the individual to go in different directions. That's the point. That's the advantage of open ended questions. There are no specified answers to questions or problems in creativity tests. Therefore, there is freedom to use one's imagination and express it in original ways. Creativity tests involve divergent thinking. Divergent thinking means thinking in divergent ways, that is, in multiple directions, in different ways. That is divergent thinking. And assess such abilities as ability to produce a variety of ideas, that is, ideas which are off the beaten track, which means not the common ones, out of the box ideas. Okay, ideas which are off the beaten track, which means they are out of the box ideas in creativity. Then ability to see new relationship between seemingly unrelated things, ability to guess causes and consequences, ability to put things in a new context, etc. This is contrary to the test of intelligence, which mostly involves convergent thinking. In intelligence test, mostly it is involving convergent thinking, which means you have to arrive at a common point, in whichever way you think. Like it's like a mathematics problem. It's said that intelligent people can solve mathematics problem within seconds, isn't it? Yes, that's because they have to think in a way and then reach a common answer. If you have, if five people are doing the problem and five of them get five answers, obviously four of them has got it wrong, isn't it? There'll be only one answer for that problem. So the thing is, intelligence involves convergent thinking. That is, things converge at a point. But in creativity, it's divergent. There are vast areas that we can explore, different ideas and concepts that we can explore. Then, in tests of intelligence, the person has to think of the right solution to the problem, and the focus is on assessing abilities such as memory, logical reasoning, accuracy, perceptual ability, and clear thinking. There is little scope for the expression of spontaneity, originality, and imagination. All these spontaneity, originality, and imagination comes in creativity or in creativity tests. Okay, now can anybody read? I'm fed up. Meghna.
Since the expressions of creativity are varied, tests have been developed using different stimuli like words, figures, action, and sounds. This test measure general creative thinking abilities like ability to think of a variety of ideas on a given topic or situation, alternative ways of looking at things, problems or situations, to guess the causes and consequences, to think of unusual ideas to improve, and to use common objects, ask unusual questions, and so on. A few investigators have also developed tests of creativity in different areas, such as literary creativity,
Underline that literary creativity.
scientific creativity,
That
mathematical
also.
creativity,
Hmm.
etc.
Hmm.
Some of the famous psychologists who have developed creativity tests are Guilford, Torrance, Catena, Wellach, and Kogan,
Paramesh.
Paramish, Bakko Mehdi, and Pas. Each test has standardized procedure, a complete set of manual and interpretation guide. This can be used only after extensive training in administration and interpretation of test scores.
Okay, so that's it. Underline those names and give. All right. So we have almost completed this. Class is still 11, no? Yes, we'll go through the whole portion. Take page number 1, that is of the chapter. Okay, from 2, page number 2. Taken. Okay. So the most important topics in page number 2. Tell me. Of course, the bolded factors, individual differences, situationism. You have to differentiate between the two and learn. You have to know the examples also. Okay. And again, there are chances that session reasoning questions are asked from this section. I've seen so many of them. So please go read that textbook thoroughly. Then assessment of psychological attributes. What is assessment? All those things. Then some domains of psychological attributes. Each domain is important. You are free because you don't have to learn the entire definition. You just have to learn the opposite. If the definition is given, you have to identify what domain it is or which domain it is. Okay, so intelligence is there, aptitude is there, interest, personality, and values. Interest, I told you yesterday itself, the word preference is related to interest, and the word enduring beliefs is related to your values. Then enduring characteristics is related to personality. Then global capacity, that word is generally related to intelligence. Global means it's an aggregate. Okay, mix. Then aptitude is the potential for acquiring skills. Potentiality for acquiring skills. That is aptitude. Then assessment methods also we saw. Again, the same thing. You have to know how to identify the different types of assessments. Then yesterday we discussed a question, which among the following is not an assessment method? So you have to know which are the assessment methods to identify that. Okay. And definitions might be given. Definitions of intelligence might be given, and they might ask who gave this definition or who proposed this definition. Then what else? Theories of intelligence. Now, before starting the theory, there are two approaches that also we discussed yesterday: information processing and psychometric approach. Okay, psychometric approach considers intelligence as an aggregate of abilities. And there is also one single index of cognitive abilities given for psychometric approach. So this might be asked, in which approach is intelligence considered as an aggregate of abilities, or it can be considered as a single index of cognitive abilities. It is psychometric. Information processing, as the name suggests, it's related to the processes that people get involved in while solving problems, reasoning, and all those things. Yes, the major focus of this approach is on how an intelligent person acts. That is information processing. Because if I give you a problem right now, how are you processing the information or how are you acting based on that? That how question answers the whole process, isn't it? How is it done? How do you make tea? You explain the whole process. How do you learn for exams? You explain the whole process. So try to get the answer from the question itself. That's why I told you read the question first, understand it, then only look at the options. Otherwise, usually what we do is you'll see the question, you'll search for the answer, and which you think is more appropriate, you'll put it in, you'll mark it. But that might be confusing for you. There might be the correct option which is hiding behind. Okay. Then we started with one factor, two factor, level 1, level 2. Oh, no, I missed one. The primary mental abilities. Then, which are they? No, level 1, level 2, structure of intellect. The theory of multiple intelligence by Gardner. Then triarchic theory. Triarchic theory, very important. Don't confuse. I have repeated it many times. The componential analysis, experiential creative, then contextual practical. Okay, then business sense, street smartness. Don't forget those names. Then pass model, CAS system. Then interplay of nature and nurture. That comes in the what do you call environment and genetics, the differences related to intelligence. Then assessment of intelligence, 1905, Alfred Binet, Theodore Simon. Then IQ, the equation for IQ equal to MA by CA into 100. Then what is MA and what is CA? That is also important. Then who came up with IQ?
William Stern.
William Stern, 1912. Then normal curve, that is a bell-shaped curve. Then average range is 100. Then you have to mark that table 1.1. That is also important, the range. Then intellectual deficiency, giftedness, characteristics. Then yes, in page number 13, can you see that bolded? High ability, high creativity, and high commitment. That's a question that we discussed yesterday. The teacher considers the student as gifted only when these factors are there. Then types of intelligence test also I discussed. Performance test and non-verbal test. It is culture fair or culture biased? Performance and non-verbal.
Culture fair.
Culture fair. Why? Because there is no use of language. Non-verbal and performance means usually they don't need a use of language. So it's culture fair. It's fair for all the cultures. It can be used in any culture. Culture bias means it will be applicable only to a specific culture. The other cultures are biased based on this. They won't get equal chances to answer it properly. Okay. Then intelligence testing in India. That was also done. So we have learned 6 till now, isn't it? 6 points from table 1.2. So from the next days, we learn the next 2. Culture and intelligence also we saw. Technological intelligence and integral. Integral, I told you, just learn one and keep so that you know the rest of it is the second one. Integral India, connected like that, IN, starting with IN, and the other one is also IN. And integral intelligence or in Indian tradition, we have 4 concepts: cognitive capacity and 3 competence, that is social, emotional, and entrepreneurial competence. One is capacity, 3 competences. Then the opposite is the technological intelligence, that is in Western culture, that is individualistic culture. In Indian, it is collectivistic culture. More achievement oriented, more technologically advanced is technological culture, and obviously we know that it is Western culture. We have learned it, and I asked you to remember with the German cars. Fine. Then emotional intelligence, EQ. Mayer and Salovey's definition is very important. Then the fact that you have to notice all people with high IQ might not be having high EQ, and the opposite also. Okay, and IQ cannot be modified much. Elvina is having a halo around your head. Can you all see? Suddenly, when I looked up, she is having a halo. Okay. Uh, so IQ is less likely that we can modify it. But EQ, we can modify it. We can increase our EQ by controlling our emotions or expressing our emotions in better ways and so on. And EQ not only involves monitoring our own emotions, it's also monitoring others' emotions, understanding the relationship between our emotions and the other emotions, self-monitoring, self-regulating our emotions, and so on. Okay, all this is related to EQ. All these are signs of a person with high EQ. Then special ability. You have the characteristics of emotionally intelligent person, box 1.2. You can go through that. And special abilities we saw from yesterday, aptitude, the aptitude tests. There are so many abbreviations also. We can learn that. If possible, I'll create a list and send it to you. Okay. And today I'll send the assertion reasoning questions from the question bank also. Please go through them. If you have any doubt, we'll discuss it in the coming classes. Creativity, we saw it today. So that's it. One chapter is over. Keep reading the textbook, not only psychology but the other topics also. Okay, especially all our humanity students. No, yeah, economics and all. Read it very carefully. Okay. So only Mahek is absent today. No. Okay. So we'll wind up then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.